Hi, in today's video I'm going to share with you 3 pieces of advice when it comes to interviewing with NVIDIA. And the first thing I'd like to talk about here would be over-relying on tips or insider info when it comes to their job interviews. And I'm specifically referencing information provided from recruiters here because, for example, I recently coached someone for a manager level role, and they were strongly advised that during their 10th interview round with NVIDIA to prepare some technicalities for that specific instance, because the person who they will be interviewing with was really interested on that topic. The candidate took that advice seriously, too seriously actually, and he expected to have a technical interview when in fact the reality was it was fully behavioral, fully non-technical in terms of interviews, and it was nothing even close to what they were expecting. So what I would like you to understand about these interviews is that everyone tries to screen you to their best of their knowledge, and they're not templated. These interviews with NVIDIA aren't templated, but you can expect speaking to very smart people who know what to look after in their ideal candidate, and you should always take advice, especially if you push for that advice, with a grain of salt. Right? And this goes the same not just with advice coming from recruiters, but also advice coming from YouTube, for instance. I also cannot know everything. I also maybe give some great advice for some certain types of roles, but not great for other types of roles in these videos. So you should really make an educated guess when it comes to advice. Okay. The second thing I'd like to talk about here specifically with NVIDIA is not to take pushback or negativism, or if they have a strong attitude towards you, not to take that too seriously. For example, it's very common in interviews with NVIDIA to have them rescheduled, especially the screening rounds, or if you ask questions such as, hey, but how long do you expect it to take to come back to me after a screening round? They might comment something online of, well, it might take even 2 weeks. Okay, so some people get discouraged about these events, but what you should understand is that NVIDIA has the upper hand. They're a very successful business, they're very profitable, and we're in an employer-driven market. So there's always been a bit of unexpected events in the hiring process, even in a candidate-driven market. But nowadays, high employment cycles tend to take longer. Okay, so if you experience these events, don't take them so serious, but rather try to capitalize on them by preparing for the occasion, because the interviews are very high quality, right? And the third thing I'd like to talk about here is that vast majority of candidates applying for jobs with NVIDIA and highly technical candidates in particular expect to have a primarily technical interview. Okay, and in my experience, this has not been the case. So, for example, I recently coached someone for a super technical role with some libraries and some software libraries and whatnot, and they actually went through 11 interview rounds, and out of those 11 rounds, more than half, 6 or 7 of them, were like fully behavioral, and the rest was, maybe a little bit behavioral, but more on the technical side. So expect half, if not more, of your job interview with NVIDIA to be non-technical. And by the way, they don't call these interviews behavioral. They might call them something on lines of culture fit interview or leadership interview or teamwork and many other these types of names. So long story short, expect non-technical questions as well, even if you're applying for highly technical roles. So these are my top 3 tips when it comes to interviewing with NVIDIA. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.